to see you. Today, we are talking through one of the toughest transitions in retirement, becoming a spender instead of a saver. Only 1/3 of retirees are actually comfortable spending their retirement money. Most would rather live off Social Security, pensions, or income from part time work. Nick, we've spent hours talking through retirees' biggest fear about living their money, but what about the other side of that coin? Don't hoard your money and compromise your quality of life. How do you help people transition from being savers to spenders?
Well, I think that's what's happening is it's almost like this two-edged sword. On
Hmm.
one side, you're trying to get to retirement and make it last, but then what ends up happening is you're not sure how much to spend because you've been saving for 30 to 40 years. You've been saving. And then it's, well, I'm retired. Now what? How do I make it? How do I take it out? How do I make it last? And so what ends up happening is most people, they just don't know how to do it. Now they aren't working, and they aren't as comfortable to spend because they know that the income is dependent on what they've saved up until that point.
Hmm.
And then they may take a withdrawal here or there, but they don't really have an idea as to, is that the right amount? Was that too high? Was that too little? And then we've got these things at 73 years old where people take required minimum distributions, and they figure, well, the government's telling me I got to take out X amount of dollars out of my IRAs and my 401ks and stuff like that. So maybe that's a good number to take out because that's what the government says. So there's all these kind of things. And I think, like I said, through proper planning, you might be able to figure out a little bit more what you can spend. And that's what I think a lot of people don't have is a spending plan.
Yeah, and we're going to get into those specifics in a sec, but I also want to share one more stat with you. The same study from BlackRock found that a vast majority of retirees still had 80% of their pre-retirement savings after almost 2 decades of retirement, and
Yeah.
1/3 even grew their assets. Do those numbers surprise you?
It doesn't, because what happens is, and I was looking at the same study myself, and it says retirees retain their accumulation mindset. What happens is it's a hard habit to break. You've been saving in 401ks and IRAs, and now you're retiring, and now you've got to transition from saving mode into spending mode. So it doesn't surprise me that, like you said, a third of these people are growing their assets, and they still have a majority of their money left over later on in life. Because I've had people that they'll say, hey, I'm a millionaire, I'm retired as a millionaire, and then they always want to stay at $1 million,
Yeah.
although the idea was to get to there and then use it a little bit to live off of. Some people get there and they say, well, I don't want to not be a millionaire anymore, so they can't bring themselves to spend it. And most haven't figured out what, like I said, what they can spend. So this is why retirement income analysis is important, because what we can help people do, and what we do a lot, is helping people figure out how much you can spend and not run out of money by, say, the time you're age 100.
Right, right.
What we don't want to do is see a zero showing that it's out by age 100. So if that's the case, well, let's spend a little bit less.
Figure it out. Exactly. So now we will get into the nuts and bolts, because you have designed an action plan. And the first step is having that spending plan. Same study again here for you, Nick. It shows 1/4 of people, though, simply do not have a spending plan.
Right. 25%. They have,
Yep.
and I actually would think it's more than that. When I meet with people day in and day out from our radio show, when they call in, what I'm really seeing is probably closer to maybe 2/3 of people don't have a plan.
Wow. Hmm.
When I ask them how much they're spending, they don't really know. It's just month to month, or it changes, or it fluctuates. They'll go on vacations and I have money over here, so I must be able to go, without knowing how that actually affects them long term. So first part of this process is you got to have what I call your lifestyle expense plan. And when I say lifestyle expenses, obviously when you're building up to retirement, you're saving. And then what ends up happening is that S changes. It goes from saving to spending.
Hmm.
And when you spend, you actually want to have what's I call a lifestyle expense plan. And what that means is not just what you're spending on your cell phone, your car, your HOA fees, and maybe a mortgage. It's what's the other stuff, the lifestyle expenses, the things that when you wake up that you want to do. Is that going golfing? Is that going to the beach? Is that going on a vacation? Is that going on a cruise? Is that visiting family? Where do they live? Do they live in New Jersey? How much does that cost? So you actually create a lifestyle expense so that you know how much it actually costs to live the life that you want to live. That's the first step.
Right. And the second step, assessing your fixed income sources.
Well, once you know that lifestyle expense and how much that costs, that's how much outflow. Then you need to know, well, what's coming in? Social Security, pension, maybe rental income. You have to figure out what's coming in and how that changes. Now, what I'm starting to see people do, which you got to be careful of, is people are using Social Security and saying, oh, well, it went up 8% last year and it went up 5% the year before that. So I'm just going to assume that Social Security goes up 5 to 8% every year. And it doesn't. I would tell people that you want to really look at maybe a 1 to 2% cost of living adjustment on your Social Security to actually be fair, because there's going to be years, and we had this in the late, I think it was 2009, maybe, where we didn't even have an increase in Social Security. So don't count on something that you can't control.
Absolutely. And now when we get through 1 and 2, that brings us to number 3. When you know what you're spending and know what your income is, bridging that gap. So that's known as the retirement gap. Nick, how do you help clients with that?
It's almost like this shortfall, So if you have a shortfall in income, then you've got to solve for that income. And what a lot of people do is, just like they have a hard time spending money when they get to retirement, what I find a lot of people are doing is when they get to 65, 70, or 75 years old, they're still investing like they did when they were 30 and 40 years old. They haven't made a change. They're in what I call growth mode. They're still trying to grow it. Instead, what they should be doing, instead of trying to get a return on investment, ROI, return on investment, that ROI should change. It should now go to reliability of income. So if you know you have a gap of income, a shortfall, you should take enough of your money and put it into an income bucket that can spin off some income to help offset for that gap. I like to have things where I can count on them, where I can build a plan, like a private pension. We know what Social Security is, we can count on it. We know what a corporate pension is, we can count on that. If there's a gap, maybe we need to set up kind of our own private pension with our money to bring in enough income that's dependable, reliable, and consistent to fill that gap. That's in essence what retirement income planning is.
Exactly. And I know that that is exactly what you specialize in, and those strategies. So Nick, if somebody wants to talk through their fears of spending their retirement money or how to bridge that retirement gap, what's the best way to reach you?
It's always easy just to set up a 15-minute strategy session call where we can kind of figure out the income situation for somebody and help them not run out of money during retirement. So they can just give us a call at 844-GROUP-10. That's 844-476-8710. And you can also go to our website, group10financial.com. And on there's going to be a lot of information. You can schedule visits right there. You can schedule those calls right there. And you can also go to our YouTube channel, where we have a lot of free content to help people understand the nuances that is retirement.
Yeah, it's so helpful, all those resources. Nick, thank you very much.
Great being with you, Erin.